Hey everybody, Father Warner here. We are in Wednesday of the fourth week of Lent, and the text of today is taken from the prophet Isaiah from the 49th chapter. We're going to look at verses 8 to 15 and then also the Gospel from the Gospel of John, chapter 5, verses 17 to 30. Now, sin has the ability, at least sin when confronted, has the ability to either make us contrite or it can make us arrogant. And clearly, when you look at Isaiah chapter 49, you sense that the people who are now in Babylon, they were taken into exile. Remember the southern kingdom, which was called Judah at that point of time, with its capital in Jerusalem. It had two tribes. They were taken into captivity in the year 587 BC. Under the Babylonians. Now, in spite of them being in captivity for 70 years, you would have expected them to be repentant. But rather, they seem to accuse God in the text of today. The people have just one line, God has the rest. And it's quite interesting to see how God responds, because what they say to God is that you have forgotten us, you have forsaken us. And in response, we hear those words that we know so well from Isaiah 49 verse 15. Can a mother forsake her children, or a woman a child within her womb? Even if these should happen, I will not forsake you. But here's the strange part. They are accusing God of something they did. They don't want to address their own feelings. And this is what happens to so many of us. We make mistakes. We never apologize for them. In fact, we turn it into a blame game. And I'm sure there are many people in your life who do this. They blame you for things they ought to be blaming themselves. And that's exactly what Judah did. Even after God sent messenger after messenger. We saw this on the reading of the fourth Sunday of Lent from 2 Chronicles. God says, you disobeyed my word, you laughed in my face, you rejected my messengers. And in spite of that, God says, I cannot forget you, because you were the only one I loved. You were my first love and my only love. And how can I forget you? And he says today, look, at the favorable time, I will answer you. On the day of salvation, I will help you. But perhaps for many of us, the moment is not favorable, not because God doesn't want to show us his favor, but because we refuse to accept his favor. We refuse to accept his salvation. Does God want to save us? Of course he does. But we don't want to accept God's favor and salvation. Now, when you come to the Gospel of today, taken from John chapter 5, it's a continuation of the narrative we heard yesterday. Jesus heals a man who is at Bethzatha. Bethzatha means the pool, the house of mercy. Beth is house, Zata mercy. So you have Bethlehem, the house of bread. Lehem is bread. The bread of life was born in a manger. I mean, look at how beautiful that is. So Bethzatha, Jesus cures a man on the Sabbath who's been ill for 38 years. And as I said yesterday, Jesus wants to heal us physically and spiritually. Who has a problem? The Jews. You see, their disobedience, their angst, their anger, their bitterness, their murderous thoughts from the Old Testament have not changed. It continues. Why? Because they say you have broken the law. But Jesus explains to them, I am the lawmaker. I am the life giver. I get all of this from the Father whom you reject. And in rejecting the Father, you reject me. In rejecting me, you reject the Father. So it is our disobedience that continues till today. What transpired in the Old Testament, what happened to Jesus in the New Testament, what happens to us today. Now, here's the point I want to make. You see, salvation is offered to all of us. God doesn't pick and choose. He offers it to all of us. When Jesus was dying on the cross, we know that one thief responded to salvation. He only asked for remembrance. Remember me, Lord, in your kingdom. The other rebuked God And that, as I began today's teaching, I began by saying that when confronted with sin, we can either become arrogant or we can become contrite. If we are contrite, at least we might land up at the gates of heaven. I can't say what will happen beyond that, because we still have to pay for our failings. But arrogance marches us straight into heaven. Or rather, let me put it this way, we march ourselves into heaven. In the readings of today, we see an unmatched love that is nailed to the cross of unmatched hatred. God loved us. We rejected that love. Look at the end of today's, or rather the text just preceding our gospel today. We are told that they persecuted Jesus, but then that persecution changed to thoughts of murder. And careful when you have thoughts that are angry and hate-filled, because you tend to execute them. And they did exactly that. Their thoughts led them to crucify the Son of God. I hope you like this teaching. Do share it with your friends. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please do it. Leave your comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say, including your experiences. Someone reading it might just be touched and their lives may be changed. Bye for now. I'll see you again tomorrow.